Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. My name is Jessica, and I'm one of the account managers here at LMN. I hope everyone is having a great start to their week and enjoyed their weekend. In this week's presentation of our Crew to Crew series, I'm going to be talking about setting up your service jobs for invoicing in LMN Time. Hopefully, this will benefit you moving forward and is something you can share with your own teams to streamline your invoicing process. Please note that this webinar is live, so if you have any questions at all as we go along, feel free to ask those in the chat box. I'll address those questions at the end of today's webinar. If I don't get to all of them, I'll be sure to follow up with you after our demonstration here today. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do is move into an estimate in LMN Estimating. All right, so for this demonstration, we are taking a look at a service example. So let's click on the estimate from the left-hand side menu, and then we'll click on service. So here you can see I have an estimate ready for us to take a look at. And for this demonstration, we'll say it has been won and sold. We will first go to the Service and Pricing tab at the top of the screen. And in this estimate, you can see we have multiple services set up. Some are set up to be per season and one as per visit. You can see this under the billing type here. So our per season work is going to be applied to our seasonal contract, and our billed per visit work is going to be dependent on if we sell that work or not. So the first thing I'm going to do is go back to the customer info section in the top left corner. And under estimate status here, I'm going to change this to contract signed. This is so the system recognizes the estimate as sold and is accurate for reporting purposes. So we're then going to go to the contract tab within the estimate, and we're going to click this create a contract for this estimate button. So the first thing we're going to do is select a start and end date. So let's say it starts on March 1st and ends on the last day of the year. If you have a PO or contract number, you can enter it in these fields. You'll also see the per season total outlined here. We're then going to specify the number of payments and the day of the month we want the invoice to generate. So let's say we want 10 payments on the first day of every month. You'll want to enter the text that will display on the invoice. So for this demonstration, I'm just going to leave it as our default, which is monthly contract services. Under invoice extras, so this would be considered your billed per visit or your hourly invoices, you'll want to specify if you want them added to your monthly invoices or if you want them to be billed separately. If you want to apply tax, you would indicate that here. You'll also want to select a cost code. So for this example, because it's a service estimate, I'm going to select 200 grounds maintenance. We can choose to calculate payments in two different ways, one being a simple method and the other being cost code if you're using multiple cost codes in your estimate. So we've generated a monthly schedule, and if you wanted to only apply tax to some items, you can check this box here. You also have the option to change a cost code on a line item basis as well. So once you're happy with this setup, we will ensure we save our changes in the top right corner. We're then going to go back to this customer info section here. And now this estimate is ready to send over to LMN Time. So what we're going to do is we're going to click this Time Export button at the bottom of the page. What this will do is it will create an estimate as a job for us to start tracking time against it and to generate invoices. So you'll see this import estimate page. You'll want to review these options before import. So the job type is service. We've indicated we want to track time by service, and everything else here looks good. So the next thing we're going to do is click this Import Now button in the bottom right corner. So now that we've created the estimate as a job, let's take a look at how it will come over to LMN Time based on how we set it up in the estimate. So first, let's take a look at our services, which you can locate on the left side menu here. So everything came over accordingly from the estimate. We have our mowing, our beds, pruning, and spring cleanup. So you can see that our per season or contract services came over as included, and our billed per visit service came over with a per visit invoice type. So what this is telling us is our per season services will not be billed when foremen check it off as complete because it is included in our contract schedule, which is billed on a monthly basis. However, when a foreman checks a per visit service off as completed, it will trigger an invoice. So you'll see here on the bottom left, I have 3 tabs under invoice activation. This is because we already created a contract before bringing it over to LMN Time. If we were to manually create a contract in Time without creating an estimate first, we would not see these 3 additional tabs under invoice activation. So you would need to click on the Invoice Activation tab and then press Activate Invoicing. Once you do this, you will see Invoice Schedule, Invoices, and Payment options. So as you can see here under this Invoice Schedule tab, because we created the contract in LMN Estimating first, the contract details came over to LMN Time as well. So you can see our seasonal total at the top of the page here, as well as our 10 invoices with the dates we set up for our contract. We can also set up default invoice settings. So you'll find this under the settings icon here in the top right corner of LMN Time. We will then click on Invoice and Invoice Settings. So here we can set up a default contract date for the start and end date, invoice default term days, and default invoice notes that will appear on the bottom of your invoices to clients. Now you can see here that I have a thank you statement as well as my company's payment portal link to make it easy for my clients to pay their invoices through LMN. If you are using our customer portal, we do recommend putting your personal portal link on your company website as well to make it more accessible for your customers. You can find your portal link under Settings and then Portal Setup in LMN Estimating. So the next thing I wanted to show everyone is invoice groups. So you can find this under the invoice section here on the left-hand side. So you can see here that I have created invoice groups based on either job type, so maintenance, install, or billing type, so seasonal, per visit, or hourly work, for example. Finally, you can also set it up by billing cycle, so first or last day of the month invoices. You can set these up however you feel would be most beneficial for your own company for organizational purposes. To create a new invoice group, you will click this Add New button in the top right corner. You will then add jobs to these groups in order to streamline your invoicing process and organize your invoice list. So the next thing we're going to do is go to our Invoice Generate screen. You can find this screen under the Invoice tab to the left here, and we'll click on Generate. So this is where you would go to do an invoice run and to see what invoices have been generated, whether it's part of a contract or a billed per visit service that has been marked by your foreman on a timesheet. You can see here that an invoice has been generated for a contract billing. This is based on the dates we set up for our invoice schedule. So this has been automatically generated on February 12th based on the contract for this particular job. Underneath the contract billing, you can see another invoice was generated on a billed per visit basis. So when the foreman checked spring cleanup as complete using the Time app on February 12th, it generated an invoice once the timesheet had been submitted. You can also edit an invoice in the Generate screen before running it. For example, if a crew chose the wrong date and the mistake was not caught during the timesheet approval phase, what we would do is we would click this edit icon to the right of the service. Then we would click Edit Services here. We would make this change, and we wouldn't forget to hit this Update button to save the change. If you don't want to run a particular invoice yet, you can toggle them on and off before running them as well. So once you've selected the invoices you want to run, you will click this Add Invoice Run button in the top right corner. This will bring them over to your invoice list so you can review and approve them. So now that we're in the invoice list screen, you can also filter by an invoice group that we set up in previous steps. So let's say maintenance, for example. This just makes for a quicker and smoother invoicing process for you. So you can see I already have some invoices ready here to show how they will appear on the invoice list screen once generated. So the first one is a seasonal contract invoice. So you can see monthly contract services, and the date is outlined on the invoice. I've also added an additional line item for a material. I have stated that I charge sales tax for this material as well, using the checkbox to the right of the line item here. So the next example I have here is a per visit invoice that was generated once checked as complete on a timesheet. So as you can see, they are very similar. The only difference is the line item will specify whether it's a monthly contract versus a per visit service. You can also make edits to the invoice as well if you wanted to change the wording, cost code, quantity, rate, or even apply tax. So other features that are extremely useful on the invoice list page include the ability to merge invoices and print them. To merge, you are simply going to check the invoices off using the checkbox here. And you're going to click this merge button at the top of the page. To print them, you will again check the invoices off and use this print icon. You have the option to print them in a standard or letterhead form. We'll then click Generate and View. So you can see there's a nice breakdown of the work here. The invoice will outline billing and job site information, date, description, rate, and breakdown of tax charges. You will also notice the invoice notes we set up in our invoice settings appear at the bottom of the invoice as well. So let's go back to our invoice list and take a look at this status column here. You'll notice that the status automatically populates to pending once an invoice is generated and moved to the invoice list. You can change the status of the invoices in bulk. So if you want to set all pending invoices to a new status, you can do so by checking off the invoices and clicking this Update Invoice button. You'll see here that you can change status and you can set it to Review, Approved, or Closed. So let's take a look at this approved invoice here. After an invoice has been approved, you can queue it for QuickBooks by clicking this Invoice Action button at the bottom of the invoice page. You can then see this Export to QuickBooks option. You can also do this from the invoice list screen as well in bulk using that Update Invoice button that we discussed. If anyone does need further assistance with this step, as the process does differ whether you use QuickBooks Online or QuickBooks Desktop, please send us a message in the chat and we can arrange a meeting with your account rep to guide you through the process. So once you've sent the invoice over to QuickBooks, you can also send it to our customer portal if you plan to have your customers pay their invoices through LMN. To do so, you will click on the action button again at the bottom here, and then you'll use this Send/Publish Invoice button. Again, you can also do this in bulk from the invoice list screen. So lastly, I just wanted to touch base on some of the report options that we offer. So from the left side menu, you'll see reports. And under billing, you can see we have some invoice summary report options for you. So you can generate these reports if you are looking to review invoice data in bulk, and you can also filter based on invoice group or date range. So this would be a great feature to utilize if you are looking for a quick and easy way to review data for multiple invoices. So that does conclude my demonstration for today's webinar. So let me take a look at some of our questions here. So one question from Richard. He asks, is there a way to print all open invoices for all customers? Yes. So from the invoice list, you don't have to do it individually. You'll just check them all off, you'll print them, and it'll print all your invoices for you. Another great question from Dan. Can you provide an example of when you may need to merge invoices? Yeah, definitely. So let's say you have a client that's a school board with multiple job site locations. The school board contacts you and says they would like all completed work for the school properties on one invoice. That's where you can merge those invoices for each job site into one master. Mark, do the dates of services show up on the invoice? Yes, they do. Another question here, this one is from Kathy. How would invoicing work for hourly billing? That's a great question. So in this demo, I did only cover per visit and contract examples. So let me show you how we could set up hourly billing in LMN Time. First, let's go back to the job list and we'll select a job. So the first thing we're going to do is click on Tasks from the left side menu. When you open up a task, there is a checkbox to track hours and rates for billing by the hour. You're going to want to make sure that this is checked in order for it to generate an hourly billing accordingly. You'll see an hourly check mark once you've done that. The next thing we would do is go to Services on the left side menu. When you open a service, you'll have to change the invoice type here to hourly. Lastly, you would go to this hourly rate section on the left, and you can see I've added a maintenance labor rate. So I did this by going to this Add Rates button in the top right corner and selecting it from this list. If you haven't added rates yet, what you would do is you would go to the Settings gear icon in the top right corner. You'll then go to Jobs and click on Hourly Rates. All right, so you would add them here with this Add New button in the top right corner. So after doing this on the Time app, the foreman would select a rate upon punch into the job. Once this service is checked as completed and the timesheet has been submitted, this will generate an invoice based on that hourly billing, just like contract and billed per visit invoices. As for the additional questions here, I will be sure to take these offline and I'll follow up with everyone by the end of the day. So we do have a forms library that you can access in LMN Estimating under Forms on the left side menu. Here we have over 700 forms and processes available for free download. We also host LMN user groups on Facebook and LinkedIn, so you can network with other companies using LMN. It's just a great way to connect with other people on how they're using LMN in their own business. We have plenty of resources available to our users as well. The first one being our Academy Online, which is online training that allows you to learn at your own pace. We also have live virtual academies that happen 4 times a day. Next, we have our LMN one-on-one support. So be sure to connect with your account rep for personalized training. If you don't know who your account rep is, please send us a message in the chat box so we can provide you with their contact information. We also have LMN Green Workshops. So these are hosted by our CEO, Mark Bradley. Join us on Tuesdays. Our next one is March 2nd from 9 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Eastern. We also have our LMN free webinars. So don't miss the new 7-part series on building a strategic plan hosted by Mark Bradley. Episode 4 is going to be on March 4th. More info can be found at golmn.com/webinars. So these sessions are recorded and can be accessed from golmn.com/webinars. If you have any questions about today's webinar or any questions at all relating to LMN, please feel free to start a chat with us or give us a phone call at 888-347-9864. Thank you everyone for joining me today to learn about invoicing for your service jobs, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day.